Welcome to the Zenergy Podcast. I'm your host, Karan Takar. Today I'm joined by Rodolfo Bitar, VP Business Development at PVH USA. We dive into what it takes to build a solar factory in the US in 2025, from what drew him to solar, to how the industry has evolved, to why PVH chose to launch a factory here. Rodolfo walks us through the first steps of getting it off the ground, the cost and automation challenges, and how PVH is positioning itself to compete in the US market. We also talk about the impact of the OBBB, their partnerships with JP Morgan and PNC, and where Rodolfo sees US solar headed over the next decade. And now, here's my conversation with Rodolfo Bitar. Hello, Rodolfo. Welcome to the Zenergy Podcast. It is a true pleasure to have you on. Thank you for taking the time. I'm really looking forward to diving into your journey, your current work. And to kick us off, I'd love to get a sense of what inspired you to ultimately work in solar.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me on. So I started my career back in, I think it was 2010, 2011, up in Canada. I was raised in Canada. I went to school in Canada. And at the time, Canadian Solar had opened a big manufacturing facility for a program that's very similar to the domestic content we have here in the US. And I got a summer job there. I got offered a full-time position after the summer, and I took it and haven't looked back into doing anything else but renewables.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, that was the time when the sector was still relatively early in its journey, at least as I understand it. And over the past 14 years, what we've seen is incredible growth, largely driven by increasingly favorable economics. At the time when you started working in Canadian Solar, were you expecting for this growth to hit the levels that we have seen them hit?
It's been astounding. I mean, back when I started, I think I was 19 or 20, and just in what was the Ontario Fed market, I didn't have much of a global picture onto what it could be and what it has become. Especially when even in a small geography like Ontario, where we had some political turmoil like we're experiencing now, and other parts have experienced. We seem to have a long runway when I started out, and it definitely has blown out of proportions into what it actually became and has become to what you could foresee back then, right? It's the industry has come a long way from a technology standpoint, an understanding standpoint, the economics behind it, the reliability behind it. It's massive, far beyond, like I said, what I would have expected as a young 19, 20-year-old starting an industry.
100%. I mean, in some ways, I feel like you probably started at such an opportune time for solar. Would like to peel back the growth and the drivers slightly before diving into your current work, because I think an understanding of how solar has evolved will help provide a strong foundation for some of what you're up to today. So someone who has sort of rode the solar wave, for a lack of a better term, how do you view like what the main reasons are for why solar has taken off at the current levels, and what do you feel like are the main levers that have initiated this current scale?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously a number of factors, and I'll give you my perspective on them in no which order, but being green energy or green production is a big factor. There's always the environmental impact that we're having as an industry and what the entire world wants to move towards. There's also the cost of it, the decrease in capex to actually build, and the efficiency that comes along with it as technology improves. Then you have factors just like how fast you can put it up, right? The flexibility to put it up, a massive plant in, under 12 or 16 months from a construction standpoint is huge. And if you count, the permitting and the development of those sites, you're still looking at putting up a massive facility or a massive production facility up in less than 3 years that not a lot of other technologies can do, right? In a time where energy demand is so high, we depend on it, so much. It's a very safe way and quick way to get generation going. So I think that has definitely helped the industry grow, beyond the other factors that I mentioned.
Thank you for highlighting each of those factors. I too agree that those are the main drivers, and each are extremely important in their own way. Now, transitioning to your current role at PVH. So as I was performing research for this conversation, I learned that PVH has had some pretty large investments that it's made. For example, in opening up a new factory in Houston, as well as it sort of has pivoted its strategic direction in the past couple of years, giving the company, as I understand it, an advantage in the US. But would love to pass it over to you for you to give me and the audience a quick little overview about the company and some of these major investments and moves that it's been making these past couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So PV Hardware, we're a Spanish-owned company based out of Madrid, part of the Grand Solar Group. The company a number of years ago decided to bring in all of its manufacturing in-house. So we manufacture, I would say, close to 85-90% of the tracker, including, or the components of the tracker, including the controller. The strategy was, if we can bring all of this in-house, we have better cost control. We can look at raw materials closer. We can control quality, and it's going to be our own product, right? So that strategy started with our first factory in Valencia, which is about 20 gigawatts of production. Then we replicated that in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah, which is a 12 gigawatt factory. And then a number of years ago, 3 years ago now, pretty much, the decision got taken to establish one here in the U.S. PV Hardware had been focused on a lot of geographies around the world, but not had the opportunity to set its aim in the U.S. market. So about 3 years ago, the company took the decision that to keep growing, the U.S. market was essential. And the research and investment started to where to put the factory. Are we going to replicate the same model, or are we going to use third-party agreements? Ultimately, the decision got taken that we were going to replicate the model that has been working for the company over the last over a decade now, and here we are. So we acquired a facility here in Houston, expanded it from 50,000 square feet to roughly 80,000 square feet. And right now we're in the process of even expanding even further with a second facility here in the Houston area.
And how have you seen client expectations and demand?
The expectations that we have for the U.S. Are there. Even with all this political turmoil that we're encountering now, the next couple of years are still looking very, very busy. It's been, I wouldn't call it a slow start, but it's been a hurdle to come into the U.S. as a new entrant, especially when the other leading manufacturers are U.S. based. The coming in as quote unquote a foreign entity and establishing presence obviously takes time, right? It's a very mature market where, as I mentioned, the other tracker manufacturers have established their reputation and history here. It's been a hurdle to get through, but overall the market expectation is there. The market growth was there when we made the decision, and up to a couple of months ago. And like I mentioned, the next 24 months are still looking to be very, very busy and in a pattern of growth.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, could you talk a little bit about firstly, what the opportunities were when you initially when your company made a decision to launch a factory here in the US. Was this, just trying to put it in time context, was this before the Inflation Reduction Act was enacted? Was it after?
The decision got taken a little bit prior to. Again, since the model for PV hardware is to actually manufacture, we weren't going to enter the market any other way. So, yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act definitely helped and pushed it over the edge in terms of making the investment, really, really look good. That said, as I mentioned, the strategy was always to implement something here. And again, we, even with all the turmoil that's going on, we still decided to expand our current operation. So it wasn't solely reliant on the IRA.
Got it. Got it. And then what were some first steps with after the factory is up and running? What's the strategy? You connect to some large developers, I assume, lock in projects. Could you just walk us through what that process looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. As any new product, we launched the manufacturing facility. We launched our training center here as well. Started reaching out to clients, and first off with the APCs, bringing them through the factory, seeing what we had to offer, getting them familiarized with our product. Some folks, had experience with PV hardware. The launch of this facility was at the same time that we relaunched a new product. So teaching the industry, what we were up to now and what our new product had to offer. And from there, obviously leaning on the IPPs and developers to see what we had to offer for their long-term management of the asset, right? The fact that we pre-assemble our components, that we offer a very competitive, if not faster, installation rates to the owner, and providing how to protect their assets against hail with all the technology and stowing procedures that we have, and so on and so forth. So it's like I mentioned, it's been an opportunity to teach the market here what PVH can do, and I think we've had good success on doing so far.
Two questions I often get asked a lot as it pertains to manufacturing different components within solar. The first has to do with U.S. competitiveness, and I think is a really interesting decision that you all opened up a factory here in the US 3 years ago. And I feel as if there is, like, objectively a big push to try and bring more manufacturing in the US. However, some argue that there are a lot of cost constraints in the US market. So I'd love to get a sense of whether that is actually the reality, whether building here is naturally more expensive than, for example, in your other two factories, Spain and I think you said Saudi. And then part B of the question is, how does AI tie into some of your current operational capacity?
For sure. So I guess the first one in regards to constraints. Yeah, I mean, naturally, the raw materials, the labor, the land taxes, everything's a little bit more expensive here in the U.S., but it didn't prevent us from offering a competitive solution. The upside to being the manufacturer and having everything in-house is it lets you optimize and find efficiencies as you go along, right? So yeah, even though there might be some cost adders, our business model allows for us to find those efficiencies to zero out those cost adders or even find some benefit. To your point in regards on how costing compares to manufacturing here or manufacturing in one of our other plants, yeah, it's cheaper to manufacture in the other plants in a per piece or part basis, but then you got to take into account the logistics fact, the fact that I don't have any tariff risk with most of my components. because they're made here in the U.S. So there's definitely factors that play in hand to it. Over the last 6 months, with all the tariff wars that have been going on, obviously that fluctuates, and they could go all the way to zero, and maybe it makes more sense, right? But to bring material in, or they keep getting higher, and it makes more of a case to really keep U.S. manufacturing going. To answer your initial question, we made the choice knowing what our manufacturing capacity is, our manufacturing cost was going to be, and it came out to be a competitive product and price point for what the market is expecting.
Have you seen a lot of evolution in the technology you're applying at the manufacturing level over the past couple of years?
For sure. I mean, we try to automate as much as we can, right? Just like the next guy. From having physical welders to using robot welders for certain components, to the presses that we use, and their capabilities to just be able to change the die and press a different part as we service the previous die that we used, the torque tube machine. So there has been a lot of evolution in technology and in manufacturing. I don't think it's as advanced as you would expect in other industries, but there has been some leaps in how we manufacture and our process, right?
Yeah. I had the opportunity to tour BMW's factory in Munich last year, and I was amazed by the amount of automation that they had integrated into their manufacturing process. So I'm especially curious to see how the solar manufacturing process stacks up on the automation piece of things. And it seems like there is a good amount of automation, but there is still some ways to go. Is that a fair way to depict?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess it also depends in what you're manufacturing, right? I mean, when you look at some of the world leading solar panel or solar module manufacturers, their assembly is virtually fully automated, from soldering the cells together to placing them, and it's wonderful to see. I don't know much about inverter manufacturer, but I'm sure that those guys are including very cool technology into their product too. So definitely the industry is moving forward to try to make it more efficient and automate as much as possible.
Can you talk a little bit about how solar farms that don't use trackers compare from an efficiency standpoint to those that actually do use trackers? I know there's a lot of variation according to geography and angular placement, things like that, but I'm just personally curious as a developer, or from a developer lens, what incentive do they have to integrate trackers into their portfolio versus not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just hit the nail in the head there with how to take the decision if you go fixed, tilt, or tracker. We offer both, so we can help our clients with that decision. As you mentioned, it's going to have to do with land constraint, geography, whether you're in up in Alberta at -40 with high winds and you're going to be stowed all the time, versus having a fixed tilt and you're just producing and don't have to worry about operations and maintenance, right? There's obviously a lot to gain from a tracker. I'm going to use Texas as an example. We have a lot of land. It's fairly flat, and with all the technology and that's been implemented by everybody out there with the diffuse and backtracking, optimizing the day in production, it's obviously going to give you more than a fixed tilt system. I would say from complete comparison on a flat site, tracker obviously is gonna produce more, but the complexity comes into when you get into parceled off sites, very odd shaped, very ondular, that you start looking at other options, whether it's a two-peat tracker or going fixed, just because you can fit more, right?
helpful context. So essentially, the developer's decision is whether the cost per tracker is more optimized than the amount they'll be able to generate by integrating trackers like multiplied by whatever utility price to figure out whether the revenue potential exceeds the cost. Am I missing any key criteria there?
No, I think you got it there. It's a matter of evaluating your capex costs with one technology or the other, to what your and the generation that you could possibly achieve with one technology and the other, and comparing it to your hurdle rates, and what you need. As I mentioned, PVH has an offering for both tracker systems and fixed tilt, and we've gotten a number of requests for fixed tilt more and more, especially as the square flat land runs out, right? And you get into a little bit more complicated topographies and placement. But it's essentially a business case on a side by side basis.
Are there any size constraints for whether it makes sense to integrate a non-fixed tilt tracker?
No. I mean, we've sold 500 kilowatt trackers all the way to 2 or 3 gigawatts in Saudi. So there really isn't a size constraint. It's at the end of the day is how much you're producing and how much is you're gaining with that production, right? To offset the cost. So there's no real size constraint in terms of is better suited for a smaller project or a bigger project.
For some reason, I had the perspective that only very major developers would be customers, because the trackers might add capital costs, and as a result, only at like certain thresholds does it make sense to integrate non-fixed tilt trackers. But it's great to hear that even smaller projects, 500 kW, integrate the non-fixed tilt trackers. Now, transitioning slightly, so of course, what everyone's talking about these days is what's happened recently with the big beautiful bill, and now there's an EO out that's created a lot of uncertainty in the space. And I'd like to preface this by saying no one really knows what is happening, and things are changing day by day. I've personally been on like too many webinars to count over the past couple weeks, and almost the consensus is we just got to wait and see. Given that, would love to just get a sense as someone who works on the ground, talks to developers, etc. Like, what are you hearing unfold in this moment? Are you seeing developers making moves to secure trackers in this window? We're recording this July 17th. Or are they mostly holding off, waiting for the EO to see whether Treasury ultimately changes guidance and then make a decision? Could you just provide a little bit of insight into what you're seeing take place here?
Yeah, for sure. As you mentioned earlier, nobody knows what's going on, right? It's a time of really high uncertainty. The executive order coming out, the legislation, the rules still being established real time, and they seem to change daily, if not hourly. It's very, 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 I hate to repeat myself, but uncertain at the moment. In regards to what owners are doing, we're having all types of conversations, from safe harboring to what our outlook is, in the next couple of years. I think there was a press release quoting me actually about the fact that we've bought quite a bit of raw materials to help clients if that's a route they want to take with the safe harbor in the next couple of weeks. At this point in time, people are just being careful, having the conversations, getting ready to pull the trigger, but getting comfortable with what the current scenario is and the uncertainty that comes along with it. It's obviously very clear that the administration is doing everything to create obstacles for the industry, and they seem to throw a new obstacle out. Like I mentioned, weekly or daily, and it's going to be hard to really get a perspective and an understanding on everything until the dust settles and all the factors are out on the table. Whether it's within those 45 days that that the executive order mandates, or a little bit beyond, until that happens, and until the guidance on what construction start means, and who's eligible for credits and the safe harboring, the FIAC stuff, the industry is not going to be able to sit down and see what the next course of action is, right? I think that the industry can agree that we've been very resilient as an industry for a lot of years. A lot of administration changes, not just in the U.S. but globally. So it's uncertain, but what is certain is that we're still going to be around one way or another. We all hope, and we're just going to have to wait at this point. But the general conversations, I think, to mirror what you said at the beginning of this is, we've all been on a lot of webinars over the last couple of weeks. Assumed charge for each webinar that they're putting on. they'd be making a lot of money. We're all asking questions and the what ifs at this point. I think everybody in the industry is talking to each other, seeing what the best case scenario is, as well as what the worst case scenario is for what's to come.
Yeah, I really hope Zoom doesn't take a page out of the Trump administration's playbook and pose a digital tariff. Otherwise, it'd be very expensive. These webinars would really add up. Thank you for expanding on that. One quick clarification question. So you mentioned that you all bought material to safe harbor. Could you expand on what exactly that means?
Yeah, for sure. So everything we've done here in our U.S. manufacturing is with U.S. steel from the get-go. And obviously, if a high demand of requests come in regarding safe harbor equipment, we'd have to do what it takes to manufacture and follow a procedure to safe harbor that equipment and provide that CapEx spent to our EPC or developer. So what we've done is just we've worked with our mill partners and sourced more raw materials. So we have a large stock of the coils. We took on more than we planned to, essentially, in our purchasing forecast to make sure we were ready for an influx.
Are you seeing sort of an influx?
Again, we've started to have a lot of conversations. It's a matter of it's ongoing.
Yeah, makes sense.
We've been asked several times. We've gone through different strategies depending on what the client's looking for. So the conversations are very live, and it seems that we will have a very large influx in the next couple of months.
Oh, it's going to be a busy couple of months, I feel like, for everybody in the solar industry. And as I was conducting research, I was very intrigued by the partnership with JP Morgan and PNC that PVH has established over the past couple of years. Could you walk us through how that came about and how that relationship has translated into growth for PVH here in the US market?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, PV Hardware being a global company, right? It's not a matter of just the U.S. Both banks have presence elsewhere. So their relationship coming into the U.S. and establishing a relationship here domestically has definitely helped. It gives our potential clients a lot of security on the fact that, if we need a line of credit or to post a bond or whatever it is, that we have that backing, and it's not necessarily coming from out of country. The fact that they've helped us here in the U.S. with different matters, as well as provided us those financials, really does help provide that sense of security and financial strength, right?
Looking ahead 5 to 10 years, what role do you see PVH playing in the future of American solar? and what excites you most about where the industry is heading?
You don't make an investment like we did to just go up one year and then close down the next. We're really bullish that the industry here is going to kick back up at some point. As I mentioned, we're still a global company, and if we need to produce for other countries from here, we're happy to do so, and we're happy to keep that manufacturing here in the U.S. The next 5 to 10 years in the American solar industry, I hope that with the energy demand going on, and with everything that's coming online for data centers and other energy consumption areas, that the industry continues to grow. Perhaps it won't be in the same manner that it is today. The models look a little bit different, but the hope is that the players looking for generation still look at the positive of solar and BESS and wind and other green energy fuels, right? In terms of what excites me most on what's coming up is in the short term, to be quite honest, Karen. I'm excited to see where all the ships fall and how we can plan and strategize and look for a way to keep growing and move forward. If we're anything, we're creative. So I'm sure that great minds in this industry are thinking of ways on how to keep moving the sector forward. And I'm looking forward to finding out what those ways are.
Creative and resilient. Love it. Thank you so much, Rodolfo, for taking the time. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Really appreciate this conversation. And best of luck these next couple of weeks and months. Make sure to preserve some of that energy. I know you're going to be working hard, but don't work too hard.
Appreciate it, Karen. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks so much for checking out the Zenergy podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to the podcast. It would mean so much to me and the rest of the team. We release episodes every Thursday, so stay tuned for all new episodes featuring industry leaders building a cleaner, greener future for us all. See you next time.